Welcome back once again. This is the frames after they'd been machined to profile and the welding ground off with the flat wheel. It had both sides. Shortly after this, a little bit of filler and it was primed up. Very happy with the results, nice and smooth. New parts. These are the axle box keeps. They go at the bottom of the horn blocks, stop the axle boxes falling out. The metal has been cut to size and this is what has to be made. First step, with the metal to the right size. It had been machined off to length en masse, all four at once, so every piece is identical length, just visible, and it will appear literally throughout the whole video. You can see a little homemade stop, so I know that each piece goes back in the same place even when I'm changing from one part to the next. It's a very simple little job. It was a block of brass, groove milled in the bottom, wide enough to go onto the jaws of the vice, and it just clips over and is held in place with, I think it's a 4BA bolt. Maybe I'll have to do a video on making one because they are very useful for holding small parts in a vice without a large accessory bolted onto the back and then taking up room on the sides. So for small simple little parts, there it is, just passed into view. So this is cutting the first rebate, and I don't bother filming every one of them, but they've just milled out to length. Now, having done one end, the parts turn round and the groove milled the other end. No need to change any settings. The cutter is slightly narrower than the groove, so it's just a matter of moving the DRO to the numbers, going down, getting the depth. Nice simple little job. It's just time consuming. I don't take huge cuts because I try and preserve my cutters and get as much use out of them as I can. I use WD-40 as a coolant, just takes the heat out, so occasionally you'll see a wisp of steam coming up. It's not smoke, so it's not burning it, and it's just a case of, as a certain YouTuber would say, rinse and repeat. And just keep doing it till you've got the right width, the right depth, and all four pieces. So there we are, cutting down slowly, almost at depth, so just making it wide enough so that it goes on to the alteration at the bottom of the horn blocks, which we'll see at the end of the video. With the rebates fully cut, then it was a case of using an edge finder, get the end, and drilling the four securing holes. And the only time I need to alter the setup slightly was when we start doing the edges, but that comes up shortly. And just keep on rinsing and repeating. It's boring to watch, but it's nice to have the first new parts made. Just as a side note, many of my new viewers came from Joe Pye, and in the background, in the left hand side, you can just see the red buffer beam of a 5-inch gauge loco, which has got a Stewart Turner double 10 engine. So the last view was showing an alteration to the sides, edge finding. This was the process of drilling the holes. I didn't actually film the actual drilling, but we're swapped now to I think it was a 4mm cutter, which gives a radius to the inside recess, and it's a case of again rinsing and repeating, going right the way through and repeating the other side, and then on all four. You can see the parallels, and as you notice, one of them is pushed away from the jaw because milling cutters and parallels do not mix, and believe it or not, the vise is moving, going left to right or away, back, slowly cutting all the way through. I use the brush, one for cooling, and two, removing swarf. Swarf build up in a groove like this is a very good way to snap off a milling cutter, especially a thin one. And although these are cheap Chinese ones, bought in bulk with a variety of sizes, you find that you snap the small ones and you end up with lots of the bigger ones, but it's the smaller ones that you need, and you have broken them all. The light is just because the light in the workshop was not very good, and the camera light wasn't giving enough light in the right place. That will soon be rectified, and I've promised that the videos will get better, and I'm working on it. New camera will be arriving hopefully before the next video, which is already in planning. It's going to be slightly different, and it will be followed shortly after that by another one which will introduce you to the projects in hand. Underneath, just to see if I had gone through, check. Easier to see looking up than looking down, or the light going up, but just carry on rinsing and repeating. This is what I could do with learning how to use this editor better and being able to put in music instead of my boring voice. If I was somebody else, I might start cracking girlfriend jokes. I won't do that yet. But, oh yeah, bringing the cutter out, I must have gone through. The black blob in the corner is actually the mill handle for drilling. Move my WD-40, take it out, and let's have a look at the slot. As you'll see, it does go right the way through. Yep, and the 4 holes for securing it when it is all done. So all 4 have now been done. Repeat and cut the groove the other side. This is actually where the springs will go through to control the axle box heights when it's all finished. The springs are another story. Part made at the moment, and I'm working out how I'm going to actually shape the spring steel to the right profile and right curve. Not easy. In a big industrial workshop it's fine, you've got a kiln. I haven't got a kiln, so I've got to come up with other ways. Just because I'm now going to link the 2 slots, easing the parallels out the way. In a milling cutter versus a parallel, the parallel will win every time. They're hardened, but they're tight just to give support. And although the movement is very small because it's a very narrow slot, I can't remember the length of the part all told, but it's I think it's less than 2 inches, 50mm. And now, as you can see, the cutter is moving across, linking the two slots, and again it's going to be rinse and repeat and do the other end. Because they're all so concentric and I've got my stop, I don't need to move the head. I can actually just turn the part around and it will fall back into the same place. Keep everything concentric and accurate. At the final article, there was a lot of hand filing to do, but I was very pleased with the result, which is the main thing. We do this to please ourselves. Yep, one end done, and do the other end. And hope, if I remember correctly, very soon you will see first finished slot. Nice and open. Yep, just carry on. One thing I do, because mine's a small home workshop, I don't blow out with air. Workshop gets untidy enough without swarf in every nook and cranny. I actually use an industrial hoover and suck the swarf up, and it's so powerful it will suck up the any lubricant as well, so things end up dry and clean. I still get swarf in every corner, particularly when drilling. The drill's very good at throwing swarf everywhere. And also a good point to mention, health and safety, if you're particularly drilling, should be wearing glasses, safety glasses. Swarf in eyes doesn't mix, definitely not, and it does hurt, guaranteed, and I know that from experience. Yes, there was a commentary I made on another site where we follow health and safety at work because we have to, it's the law. In the home workshop we don't, but just because our machines are smaller than industrial, they still bite and do as much damage. Even a small home workshop machine can do as much damage as a big one. So never be lax. It might come up, but one of my index finger on my left hand is slightly shorter than the one on my right because I chopped the end off once, and I guarantee it does hurt. You only do it once. Why did I do it twice? Silly boy. Yep, still just cutting that. I was being a bit cautious, as I didn't want it to jump up into the cutter and potentially snap it. I actually managed to use the same cutter for doing all of these slots, even though there was quite a length when you add it all up together, and one cutter did the lot, which is a good economy. We pay enough for our tools as it is. The handle's putting another appearance in, and a screwdriver, but the drill stopped, well, the mill stopped, poked the scrap out the way, which went down somewhere into the nether regions of the vise, and there we are, one axle box keep with a nice rectangular hole all the way through the middle. Bit of deburring. Now it's a case of narrowing down the ends and putting the 45-degree chamfer on. For this setup, as you can see, the stop is still in place, and to stop them jumping about, I've actually got a parallel running through the slot and resting on the vice jaws. Mill down to the depth, and again lots of rinsing, lots of repeating to get down to the depth, and then do it all over again and again and again. For a small little part there was a huge amount of work, went into making them, which is often the way in these little tiny things. When they're finished and in place, are not seen and certainly never noticed. And it's not unless you're doing maintenance on a train, on a locomotive, then you see them again. And the people, if you sell the locomotive, people just don't appreciate, and it's just a part which happens to be there. Our time in making these is just never appreciated, but we do it because we love it and enjoy it. So there we are, first one coming up to finished depth. Just finding the edge of the step at this. No, sorry, I am still milling. I'm not sure which time, how many times I've done this now, whether or not this is still the first or it's the end of the second one, but of course it's got to be done 4 times. Simple milling process. The setup is the hardest part to work out sometimes. Keep the part secure, stop it jumping around, and make sure you know where it is. There will be a setup change coming up, but yep, by the look of this one, it's the second, so that's, or it may even be the 4th, because it does look narrower underneath. As you can see, this video section is slightly darker. That's because the lighting problems, which the new camera will sort out. I've got to increase my quality, I know. My machining's fine, the video is new, so bear with me. It will get better, I promise. There was a big section cut out because I didn't want to bore you completely with it. Now with a home workshop, the mill head in this case has now been canted over to 45 degrees, hence the move to the other side of the vise. I'm being a bit naughty boy because it is cold and I'm wearing long sleeves, but I do keep my hands well away from the cutter and the machine head. Nice view of my homemade stop. You can see it in work there. There are the parts, all 4 of them, all made, having been hand finished, just to round off the edges, radius the corners, deburr them. That's where they sit, and there's holes to drill. Just check that they do fit on all 4 horn blocks, and you'll see them held in place with machine screws. Technically wrong, because it needs to be short lengths of studding, and there it is in the background, and that's the first parts made, and yep, I'm very pleased with them. Thank you for watching, be safe wherever you are in the world, and hopefully you'll come back to see the next parts, and thank you.